what? I got a fever. And the only prescription is more.
Yo, what is going on, fellas? Happy off season. We are so unbelievably back. Dude, I'm so fired up. This is going to be such a fun off season. I love these off season streams so much. And what a way to start. We're going to be getting some coaching talk in. We're going to take a little ride on the coaching carousel. And I want to do this type of exercise at this time of year because all of the staffs have been finalized. We've got a better understanding of the vision behind not just the head coach hirings, but all the staffs put in place as well. And I think a good exercise to do this and a good way to really have this conversation, as well as kind of look forward to next year and just kind of gauge the coaching market as well, is that I found an NFL head coach hot seat tier list. And I thought that that would just be a fun little thing to do. We get to talk about all the coaches, the coaching staffs, and I'm really going to dive in and hone in on the 10 new head coaches around the league, but we're going to hit everything. I've got a lot of takes to get off my chest, a lot of stuff to talk about. Should be a super fun live show. And as always, you guys know the drill. If you're in here, feel free to say hello in chat. Looks like we got a good crowd in here already. We got Caden, Michael, and David. How are you guys doing? I'm doing fantastic. I can't lie. I'm not sick, but I'm not like fully healthy right now either. It's just a little congestion going on. It happens, right? A little bit of a dry throat. Some of that might have to do with me being in Fargo this past weekend without a winter coat. No big deal, whatever, right? I'm a beast like that, but not really because I ended up getting sick. I was just there in and out real quick. It was my grandma's 80th birthday. Pretty exciting stuff, but dude, I'm so happy to be back doing these Dr. Pigskin streams. It's been like 3 weeks, which is kind of crazy, but we're here, man. We're going to do this. But how are you guys doing? It has been a minute. David, good to see you back in here. I remember our nice Mason Graham conversations from last off season. Michael, hope you're doing well. Your Steelers are going to be a main character of this stream here tonight. Gonna dive into Mike McCarthy a little bit. I remember during, I think it was my last stream, is either that one or the conference championship game, someone asked me my thoughts on the Mike McCarthy hiring. And I said, I don't want to get into it too much because I'll probably cover it in a stream at some point. But my 2-word take was, that's crazy. So I'll elaborate and go beyond just that's crazy. But we'll get into that. We got Jack in here as well. Dude, hard to believe. First time you've been in a stream since your team. No, wait. Yeah, no, that's true. First time you've been in a stream since your team, your very own Seattle Seahawks, hoisted the Lombardi Trophy. I got to ask you, man. How does it feel? It's been a few weeks now at this point. But if you wouldn't mind telling me and chat, how is it doing right now with Jack FC? I got to imagine even now it's still feeling great, man. And you know what? Congrats to you and your Seahawks. Joao, if you're watching too, congrats to your Seahawks, man. What a sick team. I mean, truly the best team in the NFL. There's no other way to put it, right? Suffocating defense, fun, creative, good offense. Patriots didn't stand a chance. I mean, it was like kind of close on the scoreboard, but like by halftime you knew like, dog, they weren't scoring. They weren't going to do anything. So heck of a season for you, man. I'm happy for you. That's awesome. Still got to pinch yourself sometimes? Yeah, I mean, maybe one day I'll know how that feels. I'm curious, Michael. Maybe I'll wait till we get to Mike McCarthy on this tier list. All right, if you want to spill the beans now, you can. What are your thoughts on Mike McCarthy? What are your thoughts on that hiring? But spent hundreds on merch, valid, dude. I'll probably do the same if the Vikings ever win the Super Bowl. True. Oh, I love this. Dude, I love these questions from David, man. Sometimes you just like lob up something just out of nowhere and it just scratches a little part of my brain. I'll hit this real quick and then we're going to dive into the news and I'll kind of explain my vision for these off-season streams. But David asking, how do I see NFL defenses evolving? And honestly, this is kind of like the lame, lazy, easy answer. But I honestly think if you want my take on how defenses are going to evolve, the best thing to do right now is watch Jesse Minter's defenses from the past few years, watch Mike McDonald's defenses, and watch Brian Flores' defenses. And I think, and we'll get into this a little bit more when we do the tier list, and I'm kind of excited to say this because it's been a while, but I think this next year you can throw the Buffalo Bills in the mix as well. The future of defense, and really the present of defense, is versatility, it's disguise, it's trickery, and it's following rules. If you can just like man up against someone, rush for, man coverage all around, that's sick and it's awesome, right? We see the Houston Texans do that, and they've got a loaded team, and it's so cool that they're able to do that. I'm not saying it's impossible, but with how good and how sophisticated some of these offenses are now, we have found that the best way to counteract that is to kind of fight fire with fire. If offenses are going to be tricky, and if they're going to try and, do all these motions and shifts and change the formation around and, kind of trick the defense into what they're actually going to do, the best thing the defense can do is respond with that. You see safeties rotating after the snap, right? You've got, all these versatile defensive backs that can fill all these different roles. Not to bring my own team into it, but like Josh Metellus, for example, he might start deep, but then by the time the ball is being snapped, he's crashing down. And then, I don't know, like Byron Murphy is like dropping up, and they're essentially like switching, and Metellus is like crashing down into the slot, and he's going to try and play the flat versus, the corner is going to try and play deep. I don't know if I'm articulating that very well, but that, in long story short, disguises being tricky and being versatile, having guys that can play all these different positions. I think that's how defense is evolving right now. And I think we're going to see that even more over these next few years as some of these other guys get snapped up off of that coaching tree. So watch Mike McDonald, watch Jesse Minter, watch Brian Flores, watch Jim Leonard. Dude, I'm fired up for that hire. I think that's a great hire. Jim Leonard, Bills DC. That one's got me going a little bit. That might be the best move that the Bills have made this offseason. But Jack is saying, no lie, McCarthy is the worst hire of the cycle. He's not the worst coach, but he doesn't like the fit at all. Yeah. Michael's saying the standard is no longer the standard. That's a good way to put it, dude. And I'm sorry to see Tomlin go. It makes me a little sad. I get why they did it, but yeah. David likes Mason Graham now. He just had to get that out of his system. I think that was valid. That was a very valid question about Mason Graham going into the draft, right? Like, it was totally fair to maybe be slightly skeptical of him and be like, hey, like, maybe this isn't necessarily Aaron Donald, Maybe this isn't the best defensive tackle prospect ever, but he's good. He's good, He could be like a Pro Bowl caliber player. Maybe not all pro, but like he could be top 10 at his position a few years from now. Caden saying Mike sucks. Yeah, you would know. There was a time where he was pretty good. At the end of the day, he did win a lot of games with Green Bay. He won a Super Bowl, and even with the Cowboys, maybe not all that you can chalk up to Mike McCarthy necessarily. They won a lot of games there too, and that's not necessarily an easy job, but Mike McDonald, baby. All right. So, as a lot of you are probably familiar, the way this is kind of going to work is we're going to have a main course type of thing for each of these streams, right? Main event. In this case, we've got the coaching tier list. But usually there's enough news to talk about where I can like hit one or two things. I might find one or two things that kind of interest me each week that I want to bring up here on stream. So we're going to start off by hitting a little bit of news. Nothing too crazy. Just a couple of things that came out in this day and the past couple of days that I want to hit. First things first. One of the first dominoes to fall here in free agency, and I'm super excited for these next few weeks because the moves are really going to start coming in quickly here. But first big domino to fall, Kyle Pitts franchise tagged by the Falcons. Valid, makes sense, I get it. Coming off a career year, maybe you could play devil's advocate and say, well, like most of Pitts' production came when Drake London was out. Sure, maybe he doesn't exactly repeat the tear that he went on to close out last season, right? But regardless of whether or not he does this every week again, it was nice to see his talent and potential finally be materialized. I mean, hey, almost 1,000 yards, Had 1,000 yards as a rookie, kind of easy to forget. He was moving pretty well out there. Definitely the best that he's looked since that injury that he suffered. I think it was year 2. So I get it. In theory, we've been saying this for like 4 years now, 3 years, whatever. Pitts, London, Bijan should at the very least be a fun offense, if not a good offense. Should be the foundation. We'll see about the quarterback situation, but in theory, should be at least fun. They tagged him. We'll see if anything else comes of that. Maybe he holds out, but at the very least, they're not letting him hit the open market this year. If he moves, it's going to be a trade or something. But Jack is saying, say this every year, but the franchise tag has got to go. I could get down with that take, honestly. Just at least the way that it is right now, right? It's so lame how a lot of these guys can't hit the open market until, well, if you're a first-round pick, really it's like year 6 or 7 of your career, right? And it screws over running backs. It screws over tight ends, some of these positions where your prime might be a little bit shorter. I get that, honestly. I could kind of get down with that. I mean, you're literally like just forcing them to come back, And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the NFL is really the only major sports league that has something like that. Like, I've never heard of, like, maybe I'm wrong. I've never heard of, like, a franchise tag in the NHL. Certainly not in MLB or NBA or anything like that. That is kind of crazy. It's like such a normalized part of football, but when you really think about it, if you were to explain it to someone who like was into sports but didn't know anything about the NFL, you're like, yeah, a team can just be like, yeah, sorry, your contract is up, but we're forcing you to sign this contract. Like, that is kind of crazy. That's a very good take, honestly. I could get down with that. But Michael's going to say, keep saying Mike Macdonald until he feels better. Yeah. There you go. That'll help, right? Maybe Mike McCarthy will channel the first name of Mike and Mike Vrabel and be good. Good question from Caden. Why are teams willing to go in on a proven bad coach rather than take a risk with a new coach, i.e. McCarthy? Because some owners are scared of change and risk. And I love the Rooneys, and I say this with the utmost respect to them, right? This is a family that's owned the Steelers for a very, very, very long time. It's not often that I'm going to necessarily like wax poetic about like an NFL owner, but like, the Rooney family has done a lot of good things for the NFL, and they clearly have great care and respect for the Steelers, right? And it's something that's been passed down from generation to generation. This isn't necessarily like your typical like idiot Nepo baby son just like screwing the team up once his dad passes away or whatever. That being said, the Rooneys have just been very comfortable doing things their way for a long, long, long time, right? And it's kind of ironic because if you look at like the hires that the Steelers have made throughout their history, Tomlin was a young, unproven guy. Bill Cowher was a young, unproven guy. And Chuck Noll was a young, unproven guy. But I don't know, like they've just been so used to like stability and continuity at the head coaching position for so long. I can at least understand how the Rooneys are like, nope, we have to play it safe. We've always like, we're so used to like having stability in the building. I don't agree with it whatsoever. But it's stuff like that. Owners get scared. They're like, oh, we know this guy. Oh, we've interviewed this guy before. Oh, people in the league like this guy. He's nice. And I don't know Mike McCarthy, but like by all accounts, he's a nice guy. Like players and coaches don't really have anything bad to say about him. They've liked working with him. And especially with like older owners that are more established in their ways, that goes a long way. If they're like, oh, well, Williams says that he likes this guy and Williams' word means a lot, that can really sway teams, especially like it's honestly not surprising that maybe the Steelers might have fallen into that a little bit, but yeah, the Hawks are getting sold, which is kind of crazy. Talk about an all-time sell high moment though, right? Like selling the team after they win the Super Bowl. And it was pretty baller that they announced that they were selling the team before the Super Bowl even happened. Even if they lost, their value wouldn't have like tanked or whatever, but that is an all-time sell high moment right there. But yeah, dude, bad owner, it's over. Like straight up, any sport, if you have like a truly bad owner, it's over. Sorry. Like, especially in baseball. And I feel your pain, Michael. Yeah. David asking, will we see more defensive play callers as head coaches now? Maybe not right this second. If you break down the hirings this year, there were 6 offensive play callers, or at least guys with background in offense, 3 defense, and then John Harbaugh, whose background is special teams, but like he's just been the CEO guy for a few years and for a few decades now. So based off of just like what I've seen from this past cycle and previous cycles, not yet. I would like to see it even out just a little bit more because I think there's just so many smart defensive minds in football right now. I'm certainly not complaining that arguably the brightest of them all isn't getting hired as a head coach, if you know what I'm saying, as a Vikings fan, right? Hey, selfishly, I'll take it, right? Keep hiring offensive guys, Go hire Matt LaFleur's brother. It's chill. Flores will stay here. Chris Shula not getting hired too, right? That's kind of crazy. I mean, even like some of the older guys who don't necessarily get like a lot of pop, but have been really good and stable for a long time, like Patrick Graham, Patrick Graham, people have never really thought twice about Patrick Graham being a head coach, but if you look at his resume and his track record and how people speak about him around the league, it's like, shoot, dude, if he was an offensive guy, he probably would have been hired at this point, Steve Spagnuolo is another guy. Like, granted, low-key, I think he might be on slight washed watch a little bit. But, like, there was a time where Steve Spagnuolo was just so good and so revered, but he was older, he was a defensive guy. Teams just didn't want to bother hiring him. I don't know. It wasn't seen as quite as like sexy as bringing in a LaFleur. You know what I'm saying? But I don't know. Did Jason Garrett, like Todd Monken? It's like, I don't know, man. I don't know. But I'm loving this. I'm loving this talk, dude. We're just getting started. We're just getting warmed up. Here's another thing that I wanted to talk about here real quick. Something that is very interesting that kind of caught my eye. And I think this came out today. You always get some stories like these. But the NFL Competition Committee is considering allowing replay officials to throw flags. I don't know, man. I don't know. What do you guys think in chat? What do you guys think of this? I can understand maybe saying, hey, like, blown calls are so bad and they just shouldn't happen, and it's stupid that, like, missed penalties, especially if they're obvious, like, that shouldn't decide a game, right? But on the other hand, and maybe this is just like very hokey and sappy of me to say, this is a very me thing to say, there is something honorable about the human element of the game, right? There is something honorable about how things will never be perfect and officiating will never be perfect. And you know what? Sometimes penalties do get missed, but you know what? We remember it. And I'm sure it hurts if you're the team that gets screwed over. Like, believe me, like we've all been screwed over before in a big spot, right? Every single fan base can point to a time where their team lost a big important game because of questionable officiating, right? We all can do it. Am I stupid for thinking that, like, I'm kind of against this and, like, we should just leave things be and it's totally okay if calls get missed? Is that a bad take that I'm okay with the fact that, like, human referees will never be able to be 100% perfect? And honestly, I would wager that, like, referees right now are probably, like, 85% accurate, and that's kind of incredible, and that, like, that's okay. Like, 85% is fine. I'm okay with 15% chaos. Is that a stupid take? Because the more I talk about, the more I'm like believing this, and it's like, you know what? No, I'm kind of against this. But what do you guys think? I did think this was a little interesting though, and I don't know. I like this quote. You don't want to just be expanding the Pandora's box. I don't know. You open the door to all of a sudden these replay officials in New York who aren't even at the stadium have a lot of sway. You're right, Jack. There's holding on every play, right? You could throw a flag conceivably on every play if you really interpret the rule book strictly like that. Exactly. There you go. So I don't know. That was just something that I was like, I feel like we're teetering towards that point. It might happen eventually. I'm not going to like storm the NFL offices or whatever if it does. Like, I'm still going to watch. I'm not kidding myself here or anything like that, but there's always these situations to monitor during the off season with as far as like rule changes go. Like, do y'all remember last year when the Lions tried to like ban defensive holding from being an automatic first down? It's like, I wonder where the Lions ranked in defensive holding calls across the league that past season, and they were number 1. It's like, yeah, obviously you don't want an automatic first down. You're telling me an aggressive man-heavy defense that gets up in your face doesn't want to like suffer the consequences of the downside of that type of style of defense, you know? Obviously, it didn't go through, but I thought that was so funny. I'm not even like hating on the lines. I thought it was hilarious. Like, shoot. Like, sure, go for it. One more thing, actually. One more thing about the rules, too, before we get into the coaching tier list. I couldn't help but notice there's some discourse today online about how there's no chatter. It's kind of crazy. There's no chatter this year about taking away the tush push. It's like, that's so interesting because 22 teams voted to ban it last year. All of a sudden, the Eagles get first rounded, and like everyone's like, no, the play is actually safe. It's okay. The Eagles go from like 92% to like 79. It's like, no, the play is safe. It's okay. That's interesting. Couldn't help but notice that. Let's go, baby. We're going to win this fight. We're going to win this fight, and the tush push is going to stay in the game. We're here for it. Jack did like challenging the PI calls since those are spot fouls, and that changes the outcome of a game by itself. I get what you're saying. Look, I get what you're saying. And if I'm going to be objective, like, that's a very valid take, and that's fair, and I understand that. If I'm going to wave away objectivity, though, come on. It was kind of, as a Vikings fan, it was kind of funny seeing the Saints get screwed. And then the following crash out from them. And then the league was like, fine, we'll let you challenge it. And then I swear, like, only one or two of those challenges actually got, like, reversed the entire year. The league was like, yeah, we're not doing this. The refs were so uppity about it. They're like, how dare you challenge our calls? I did think that was kind of funny, but I do think maybe at some point we might get to a spot where like you could challenge a penalty, and I at least think that that's like a little bit better. Like you get 2 penalty challenges per game versus like every other drive. New York is like, actually you missed a flag there. Sorry, we have to call this sick play back because there was clipping. But I get what you're saying. Should be able to challenge PI addition in addition to no calls. We could have a conversation about that. I'm not as against that as I would be like giving full autonomy to the replay officials to be like, you missed a flag, missed a spot. I don't know. That's just me though. 2-time national champion Todd Monken. No, he's a good play caller, and he's been around for a long time. He seems to have some respect around the league. We'll see. I mean, we'll get to Todd Monken soon enough. I don't know about that situation, man. Take a look at who's all free agents for the Browns. Go ahead and tell me who you think, like, who's going to be their offensive lineman next year. I don't know. Well, we'll get into that soon enough. But here we go. Let's just get into it. We have got our head coaching hot seat tier list. Got headshots of all 32 head coaches. Sadly, there's no Rutrow Raggy this time. At least not today. There's no Rutrow Raggy. Maybe eventually. Give it like a month or two. We might see the return of the Rutrow Raggy tier. But this is pretty standard stuff. All 32 coaches. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tiers here. Oh, I meant to change this. Hold on. Sorry. Hold on. I meant to change this. I edited this and then I just forgot to save it. Don't mind me real quick. You get to see how the sausage is made a little bit. All right. Warm. Yep, this was warm. 1 second. This was lukewarm. You can see it in the thumbnail too. And this is not fired because obviously there's no fired coaches right now. This is red hot. There we go. Beautiful. There we have it. No. Whoa. What happened? Okay, we're good. We got mile marker in here too. Let's go. Settling in for the evening. Saw me on. Appreciate you tuning in as always, man. Let's go. Hey, there's your coach right there. Get a little coaching talk. Nothing wrong with that. But we've got 4 tiers. Pardon me. We've got red hot, which is like you're probably on like one of the 5 hottest seats in the NFL, right? Warm is like, you could really talk me into this guy getting fired or being in some real danger, some real peril. Maybe there was some talk this year and you survived, but it's like, maybe a slightly hotter take to say, oh, so-and-so is going to get fired. Lukewarm is like, I don't think you're going to get fired, but I could see a world where it happens. You should maybe be in a little bit of danger. You don't have the safest job in the world. And then there's safe, which is like the best way I could describe this. This is going to sound bad, but like, the only way these guys are getting fired is if they commit like an actual crime. Like, that's the only way they're getting fired. Like they could, like, their team could like win 4 games and they're probably safe. You know what I'm saying? Probably a lot of newer guys going to be in this spot. We might see a few guys in safe, quite a few guys, but let's just do this, baby. Let's just do this. All righty. All right. Michael's saying he's the most loser head coach I've ever seen. Jack is saying first guy goes straight to the top. I believe it's in alphabetical order. We've got Aaron Glenn, and I'm going to have to agree with you, Jack. And honestly, this makes me kind of sad because I have been in Aaron Glenn's corner for a very, very long time. I've been going to bat for him. And even during the season, I was kind of going to bat for him. Like, hey, let's just be realistic. This team is not good. They did not get a single interception. Like, that's not going to happen again. Players seem to like him. Just give it time. And I was like, hey, I honestly kind of like the staff that he built. I see the vision with what they're doing. Look at all these draft picks that they have. Things might work out. Dude, I'm not going to lie. Like, this offseason has been a disaster for Aaron Glenn. Really. It really has been. I do not agree whatsoever with getting rid of Tanner Engstrand as offensive coordinator. I thought he was the best part of that coaching staff last year. I really liked what Engstrand was doing. They're getting rid of every single coach except Glenn. It's like, I don't know, man. How do we feel about that? They're casting out everyone else out of the building but keeping Aaron Glenn. And then there was this whole weird thing with Wink Martindale where he was about to be hired as the Jets defensive coordinator. And then Aaron Glenn was like, oh, by the way, actually, I'm going to be calling plays on defense. When he didn't do that last year, and he apparently wasn't super transparent about that in these interviews with Wink Martindale. Martindale, who is a very esteemed defensive coordinator, been doing this for a long time, was kind of under the impression, like, so I'm going to be calling plays, right? Like, you didn't call plays last year. There's a reason you're bringing me in. And then all of a sudden, last second, Aaron Glenn's like, nah, I'm calling plays, dude. What are you thinking, you know? And then Martindale gets mad and he pulls out and they lose out on him. Just a lot of weird stuff happening, you know? As much as I like Aaron Glenn, and I'm with you, mile marker, I would love to see him get another chance. He seems like an awesome dude, and I wanted this to work so bad. I do not like Frank Reich is the offensive coordinator in 2026. Like, I'm sorry. Engstrand was so good this past year. He made so much work with just an interesting cast of characters, you know? I really liked some of the design. He really got the most out of that offensive line. He really started to unlock A.D. Mitchell. And now I just don't understand firing him. I do not get that. So yeah, Aaron Glenn is in red hot. The Jets don't exactly look good. Plus, they aren't even in a position to get a quarterback in the first round of the draft. AG didn't used to do the drama. I know, dude, I didn't think that like stuff like this was going to happen with him. I thought, wow, like it's very telling that all these lines assistants are going with Aaron Glenn. Like, holy smokes, getting Tanner Engstrand. That's such a big pull for him. That's such a feather in the cap of Aaron Glenn. It's inexplicable, man. I don't get it. But yeah, you're right. He's probably on the hottest seat in the NFL, dude. If you had to ask me who I thought would be like the first coach to be fired, if you had to ask me to pick one guy to be fired mid-season, unfortunately, it probably is AG. As much as I love him, we just got to be realistic about things. Look at all the ties, dude. I know. Look at these guys. They're dripped out. I love it. You got a few polos. You got some hoodies. But then you got the real classy coaches in suits and ties, you know. That's class. Yo, what's up? Hello. Welcome back, man. Let's go, baby. Appreciate you tuning in. Well, coaching hot seat tier list. A little coaching talk here to get the offseason kicked off. Let's go, baby. All right. Jack is saying maybe hot take, put Andy Reid in lukewarm. Not to one-up you. I'm tempted. I don't think I can quite bring myself to put him in red hot. I am going to put him in warm, though. I'm honestly kind of out on Andy Reid a little bit. I do not think these past few seasons, really these past few seasons, and especially this season, have been very kind to Andy Reid. And this is something I've kind of been complaining about a little bit throughout this past season, and it really, really popped up. There's just not a lot of new ideas in that building. Everything just feels very stale and flat right now. And it's just become more and more obvious that the Chiefs' offensive success, I would argue really for the past 4 years, has kind of been Pat carrying. Okay, maybe not 4. I would say 2022 was the last time I felt good about like Andy Reid's offense and not just like, wow, this is Pat carrying, you know? I don't know, man. It's just like, and it just, look, like, he doesn't always get lumped into this bunch because he's an offensive guy and he's always been labeled as like innovative and forward thinking, right? But I would make the argument that Andy Reid has kind of become one of those old, stubborn coaches who doesn't really change his ways, right? And the league, dare I say the league is like starting to maybe pass him by a little bit. And again, I think that's weird to say about like someone who's always been seen as this offensive wizard. But and I'm actually like, this is like a soft launching of my next video. My next video is coming out very soon. Post a little teaser. Next video after that is going to get into this a little bit more. But Andy Reid's offense, with how shotgun heavy it is, how spread heavy it is, you might tend to think of that as like, oh, that's new and that's futuristic and that's cool, right? But really, when you look at how offenses across the league have evolved and what's successful right now, it's not what Andy Reid is doing. It's not what the Chiefs are doing, right? All this shotgun inside zone, all these like spread it out. Oh my gosh, we want to chuck it deep and beat you with like speed and screens. Like, maybe not so much screens, but what Andy Reid's bread and butter is really is not en vogue right now. And they haven't really done a whole lot to change that. The offense has felt stale. I mean, let's be honest, dude. Like, they were not. I mean, we talked about this last time, right? They were not making the playoffs even if Mahomes was healthy this year, right? He's old, and maybe this is unfair to put on him, but also, like, there's been some interesting stuff, some drama in the locker room a little bit, and you wonder, like, how much of a lid do you have on that right now? Maybe that's unfair for me to say. I'm going to put him in warm. I get what you're saying. 3-time Super Bowl champ. He's had a lot of success, right? And I backup QB Whisper, thank you for tuning in. I would not say he's a Mahomes merchant. There was a time where Andy Reid was a brilliant, brilliant head coach. He's been doing it for a long time. He won a lot of games well before Patrick Mahomes was even in the picture with the Chiefs and with the Eagles too. And see, that's the Michael's saying, like, isn't Bieniemy coming back? Isn't Tyreek Hill coming back? I mean, that's like the chatter, right? I would say that's like emblematic of kind of the problem, though, right? They just keep calling their ex. It's like, no, like, I'm sorry. 2018 was a long time ago. You are not that team anymore. Stop trying to remake the 2018 Chiefs. It's not going to happen, man. You got to change, right? Patrick Mahomes can play under center. So do it. Do it just a little bit more, you know? You don't stop trying to make Xavier Worthy Tyreek Hill. He's not. He can't win on the outside, you know? Like, I don't know, man. Their offense right now is literally just like RPOs to Rashee Rice, and we'll see we'll see how that situation plays out, you know? Tyreek Hill's on washed watch, you know? I am kind of saying get their retirement home ready. Here's what I'll say. I think out of respect for him, I don't think the Chiefs would ever fire him. The Chiefs could win like 4 games next year, and it would be abundantly clear that Reid needs to go. They would not fire him. It would either be mutual parting of ways or he retires, right? But they might take him out to the pasture. There's a world where he's not the coach like next or like the following year, right? There's a world where I'm doing the stream a year from now and Andy Reid is not on here because he's not a head coach in the NFL. I'm kind of out on him a little bit. I think coaches can get washed. I really do. And I think that honestly, he's kind of getting there a little bit. I would love to see, here's what I'll say. At some point in the next 5 years before his prime is truly over, let's get Pat with a new coach. Let's get Pat with like some new ideas. Get Pat with a young guy. You know what I'm saying? Let's get Pat with Grant Udinsky and let's cook. Let's go, baby. That is my Andy Reid take. Byron Pringle. Yeah, dude. And Sammy Watkins, too, right? Oh, man. MVS, right? Give him a call. What's Charchandrick West up to these days? All right. Jack is saying he's put the next two guys in safe. We've got Ben Johnson up next. Yeah, he's safe. He's probably one of the, there's going to be quite a few guys in safe, right? Ben Johnson might be one of the 3 safest head coaches in the NFL right now. And admittedly, I'm gonna call myself out here a little bit. This time last year, I was like a little skeptical of him as a head coach. I was like, we all know he's a great offensive coordinator. He hasn't really shown himself in like a leadership role before. He kind of struck me as like, and I say that no disrespect because I say this as someone who is very weird and like awkward and probably wouldn't be a good head coach, but like he kind of struck me as like a weird, awkward guy who like might just be best left to like drawing up plays, you know? Not the case at all. Not the case at all. Absolutely proved me wrong. Built a culture in Chicago very quickly, right? Good, better, best. Never let it rest. I mean, dude, that's sick. You know, he's ripping off his shirt in the locker room. He's got the players going crazy. Oh, yeah, and he still delivers on being a great play caller, too, you know? He got Caleb Williams to lock in and play under center. He turned that running game around overnight. He's maximized Colston Loveland. Luther Burden is not only like a good receiver, but he's blocking, you know, like the fact that Luther Burden, a guy whose motor we questioned, is blocking his tail off. Huge testament to the coaching staff. You could see them improve as the year went along. It was a very complex system, very tough to pick up for a lot of young players, but they got there. And I'm honestly pretty high on the Bears next year. He's very safe. I think even if they take a step back and miss the playoffs, he ain't going anywhere. Great hire for Chicago. Yeah, I feel good about safe. I feel pretty good about safe. You'd say Ben is the 4th safest head coach? Well, I'm curious what your list would be. I would say McDonald, Vrabel, and McVay, maybe, are the 3 other guys that would be safer. That's fair. Yeah, I get that. You say the next 2 are safe. I could understand putting Schottenheimer in safe just because, like, look, this is only his 2nd year, you know. And honestly, he did pretty well for himself. He had a good year. I'm going to put him in lukewarm. I mean, hey, I don't know. Cowboys missed the playoffs. They still haven't. Lukewarm feels a bit harsh. We'll put him in safe. Yeah. Even if they miss the playoffs again this next year, then you're probably looking at him being at warm the following year. I'll put him in safe. You're right. You know what? I talked myself out of it. Yeah, we'll put him in safe. You know, Cowboys punched above their weight. I love the staff that he's built too. Not to like, you know, that's something I'll be saying a lot about, like these coaches that I like. Dude, guy that I've shouted out on here before, not the only one to be on this train, right? If you listen to Football 301, they love this guy. Dude, shout out Clayton Adams. Dude, you want to talk about turning a running game around? How about the Cowboys having a good run game last year? Awesome stuff, dude. Maybe it's not all Schottenheimer, but he hired the guy that put it in place, you know? He's built a good staff. They were fun to watch. They've got a little bit of draft capital, too. You know, they got 2 first-round picks this year. Yeah, we'll put him in safe. Yeah. It should be Jerry Jones that's gone? Yeah. I mean, if we're going to be real, yeah. You know? Maybe I'll save this for another stream. I've got a crazy take that kind of involves Jerry Jones a little bit. You know what? No, screw it. I'll say it. This is something I was thinking about. This is honestly like not related to Brian Schottenheimer at all. If you want a spicy take that I truly, legitimately believe, I'm going to say in the next 6 years, Patrick Mahomes will be a Dallas Cowboy. That's it. Jerry's final big swing before, this might sound a little like morbid, before he passes on or before he like turns the team over to his son or whatever. Jerry Jones' final big swing as the owner of the Dallas Cowboys is going to be bringing in Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes is a Texas native, grew up cheering for the Cowboys, and I think it's a little naive to just assume that like Mahomes is going to be a Chief forever. I don't know, dude. Probably not, right? Reed is going to be gone soon. Travis is going to be gone soon. Brady was supposed to be a Patriot forever, right? Peyton was going to be a Colt forever, right? Phillip Rivers was going to be a Charger forever, right? And, I was just something I was thinking about. I was like, you know what? No, I'll just say it now. It came up organically, but there you go. Oh, chat disconnected. Okay, there we go. We're good. We're good. What's up, Rick C? Appreciate you tuning in. We're on to Dan Campbell now. We've got some Dan Campbell chatter in chat. Jack is saying Dan Campbell should be legitimately warm. Rick says Dan Campbell's seat is ice cold, as it should be. Chotchkis is saying Dan Campbell, is he warm or lukewarm? I'm going to say lukewarm. Simply, it's tough. It's tough. Yeah, he and Brad Holmes need to lock in a little bit. I'm going to say he's lukewarm, but I will also clarify by saying that I honestly do feel fairly good about where the Lions are right now. I think all things considered, you step back, take a look, big picture. They were a little unlucky to miss the playoffs last year. This is still a very talented team. The offense is still very good. Maybe need to tweak a few things on the defense. I mean, hey, Dan Campbell stepped in and called plays, and he did all right, Like, we'll see about the Drew Petzing hire. That wasn't my favorite necessarily. I wish they would have gotten like McDaniel. I mean, easier said than done, but no, I get what you're saying, Rick. Like, the Lions offense was still very much good last year, and Campbell stepped in, and like, I won't necessarily say Ben Johnson had nothing to do with it, because like, if Ben was still there, they probably would have been a little bit better, right? But also, like, one more time, I got to do it one more time before we officially move on to next season. The real blow is losing Frank Ragnow, truly, right? I'll put him in lukewarm, though, just because I think, this is going to sound lame, but like the politics of it all, right? And this is the other one of those human element to the game type of things. Look, you could argue, like, even if the Lions missed the playoffs back-to-back years, like, in theory, in a perfect world, Dan Campbell should be safe, right? And I would probably be in that camp. But the reality of it also to consider is, if you put yourself in the shoes of the Detroit Lions organization, Lions missed the playoffs this past season. They miss again this year. You feel that window closing just a little bit more. You scratch your head and say, hey, man, like, look at this offensive coordinator that we let go who's doing so well for the Bears, and like these assistants leave, and now all of a sudden, like, we're left with like a good coach but not a lot of good ideas in the building, right? Here's what I'll say. He's perfect for lukewarm because, like, there's a world where he could get fired. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but there's like a world where he could get fired this year. So I'll put him in lukewarm. But I think he'll be safe, all things considered. I think there's a very small chance of that actually happening. Also, I'm seeing your message now, Caden. If any coach were to use you as a hot seat, as in me, who would I choose? I mean, Dan Campbell's got to be up there, right? I mean, I feel like that would be delightful. Dan Campbell, I mean, hey, Matt LaFleur is a pretty good-looking guy, right? But also, if I were to be the seat, I feel like I'd want someone a little bit bigger, a little bit more size. I will say Dan Campbell. That's perfect because we're talking about him. Or, Sean McVay because the Rams are epic. Dude, if you're new in here, people are like, oh, man. But they are in a brutal division. We got the Dan Campbell quote as well. Let's go, baby. Yeah. But I'll say lukewarm. Hey, you know what? 9 in the defense, hey. But I like Dan Campbell, but lukewarm. Yeah, he's got to still be for sure. All right. Next one, Dan Quinn, red hot. I mean, come on, right? Hey. I was right. It's not often I can say that. Absolutely not whatsoever. I'm sorry. I was right about the Dan Quinn Commanders. He's a defensive coach, and the defense is not good. He's another coach that feels washed. His scheme feels dated. And this is honestly this is perfect full circle moment, right? If we circle back to the conversation that we were having at the top of the stream with David LeBlanc asking me how defenses are evolving in the NFL. And I said, so much of it is disguise, following rules, and being tricky. Respectfully, that is kind of the antithesis of Dan Quinn's defense. And to boot, I said, hey, If you can just rush 4 and run man, that's sick. You better be pretty good. You better have a team that's like as good as the Houston Texans. The Commanders do not have that. I don't like the decision to fire Cliff Kingsbury. I just don't get it. I feel like Cliff was getting the most out of Jaden, right? And there's been so much, like the Commanders didn't really use motion. They didn't really get under center, and that's what NFL teams are doing. And I might sound like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth here, right? But that is what Jaden Daniels does. That is the quarterback you drafted. That is what you signed up for. That's why you brought in Cliff, was because he and Jaden were supposed to get the most out of each other. And it was working. The offense was not the problem. I'm sorry, man. The offense was not the problem. I do not get firing Cliff Kingsbury. I think that's a huge red flag. The team underachieved last year. They don't have any picks. They don't have any cap space. The defense isn't good, and he's a defensive coach. I think he's cooked. Yeah, you can't. Jaden is honestly pretty good, dude. Yeah, we'll see, man. Commanders might commander. We'll see. But appreciate you tuning in, Cal's Anonymous, saying he looks too much like Stone Cold Steve Austin for me to be attracted to him. You know what? That's fair. He's got some ruggedness to him, though, right? To each their own. But Christine, if you're watching, I'm just kidding. That's what I was saying. It was about me being low-key sick. Whew. Anyways, I had tea in this earlier. Now it's just hot water because I've run out of tea mix. But that's hot. I'm such a baby when it comes to hot drinks. I'm getting better though. I ordered a hot Americano yesterday at a coffee shop. I felt like such a man. But anyways, next one, we've got Dave Canales. He's probably going to be in safe, right? I mean, making the playoffs with the Panthers, even with the losing record, Mickey Mouse bad division or whatever, there's been so much progress and growth with the Panthers. If you look back at the state that they were left in when Frank Reich was there to now, the organization has got some seriousness to it now, right? Canales is beloved by the players, even though he's not some offensive genius. Here's a weird Dave Canales take that I have, is that Dave Canales, by no means is he some crazy innovative schemer, but I honestly think as far as feeling the flow of a game and just knowing what to call when, he's got very good instincts as a play caller. He's not gonna show up on Film Nerds Twitter or whatever and wow, he was look at this unbelievable design, but also he just kind of knows what to call when, if that makes sense. It's just wow, that was a smart time to call a run. Wow, that was a good time to call play action. You know what I'm saying? He's just an ethical play caller. He just knows what to call, He's done a good job there. And you're right, Michael, the forever team of Dr. Pigskin. Let's go, baby. Let's go. Oh, yeah. Jack is... Oh, I like it. A little challenge from Jack. I like this. How much of growth was there, really? We said the same exact thing last season. Bryce Young finished the year strong, and once again, he was consistent all year. Yeah. I mean, hey, how much of that is Bryce versus Canales, though, right? And this is where things get tricky, and this is what could maybe ultimately do Canales in, maybe not this year, but a few years from now. The Panthers have a very tough decision ahead of them as far as Bryce Young goes. Do you dare dream bigger, I remember doing my quarterback ranking quiz stream back in December. And it's fair to say, honestly, a lot of times watching that Panthers offense, it's dude, this team would be so sick if they had a real quarterback out there. And Bryce is just maybe not quite there, right? I get what you're saying. I think the defense improved a lot, though, and they're going to have the chance to bring in more guys on that side of the ball. And I mean, hey, here's what I'll say. For as much of a narrative as there was about Mickey Mouse team, losing record, bad division, and I think that's all very true, right? It is worth, they beat a lot of good teams last year. They beat a lot of playoff teams last year. And you know what? They have heart. They have heart. And man, if you didn't get chills watching that Panthers Rams playoff games, you don't have a heart. Oh, baby. Maybe the aura's getting to me. I get what you're saying, though. I get what you're saying. Maybe the Panthers didn't like have a crazy jump. They didn't have the jump that you'd expect from like an unexpected playoff team. That's fair to say. I get that. But we'll have Canallison safe. We'll throw D'Amico in there as well. I mean, hey, not his fault. He's doing his job. Defense is good every year. And you know what? Like, they've won a play. They've not just made the playoffs every year with D'Amico. They have won a game in the playoffs every season with D'Amico Ryans. Maybe they're not quite at like the Super Bowl level that we thought they would get to a few years ago. There's no reason to move on from D'Amico Ryans, though. He's instilled a culture there. I think it's so sick that he's a former Texans player who's now the coach. And he's just he is the ultimate, like, he too is almost like, he doesn't have like a crazy defensive scheme, right? I saw a tweet once where it was like a screenshot of like cover 2 man in the Madden playbook, and it's like the Texans just run this 50 times a game and just smother you. It's true, dude. They run like the most vanilla basic scheme ever. But man, if he doesn't have those boys playing hard, man, if he doesn't have buy-in from the top down, and man, if he doesn't know like how to use every single player, right? I mean, hey, like Jalen Petrie is not just like a pure safety. He plays slot some too, right? You know? Yeah. Stroud is tough, you know. Some questions to figure out on the offensive side of the ball. It ain't D'Amico's fault, though. I don't know. We'll see about, like, you know, bringing in some new guys on the offense. Buzz cut CJ Stroud, maybe, but D'Amico's safe for sure. Jack wouldn't be surprised if Hafley is one and done. Oh, that's a hot take, you know. I'm tempted to put him in safe and be boring just because, like, look, he's a first-year head coach. I think this is the first-year head coach we're going to talk about here. And I thought he did a pretty good job as the Packers DC, and he has head coaching experience, right? He was a head coach at Boston College for a little bit. I get what you're saying, and just like the Dolphins are in such like a tough spot right now with Tua, what do you do with him? And they've got an old, aging roster, and they've had to move on from a lot of guys. I get what you're saying with that. This also definitely has the feel of a team that's like pretty self-aware of where they're at and knowing that like they can take it slow and kind of methodically rebuild this a little bit. It wouldn't surprise me if the results were akin to a one-and-done coach where they win like 3 games or something, and like, I don't know, the vibes aren't like Dan Campbell's Lions where everyone's like, we believe we will fight till the very end. You know, like it probably won't be that. But, you know, they've got the nice little GM head coach package deal. At least from my reading of the tea leaves, it feels like they're pretty self-aware about where they're at. But you're saying you could see the Dolphins ownership being impatient since the team is inevitably going to be bad. That's true. They do have an interesting ownership group. They were pretty patient with McDaniel, though. I mean, they held out till the very end on whether or not to fire him. I'm trying to remember if they've been like a patient ownership group historically or not. Was Joe Philbin a one and done? I think Philbin got a second year, maybe. He was, dude, no disrespect, he was like the most boring head coach ever. Anyways, we'll put Hafley in safe. Maybe you could sell me on lukewarm. This will be a slightly boring part here. We're going to get a lot of safes, I think, but you know what? We move. Jesse Minter, safe for sure. This is my favorite hire of the cycle. Dude, I love this hire so much. Everything about it makes sense, and I'm going to say the line again. I love the staff that he's built here. I'm warning you right now, I'm going to fall for it again with the Ravens this next season. I don't know if it'll be to the extent where I pick them to win the Super Bowl, but I'm going to fall for it again. This hire is perfect. They got a defensive guy, which is what they need. They need someone that can squeeze the most out of that defense right now. There's like some talent there, but it's not great. But on top of that, this is a guy that's worked under Jim Harbaugh for a long time, so he kind of understands, at least, you know, adjacently, the Harbaugh Ravens way, culture type of thing. I think he gets it, you know. I love bringing in Anthony Weaver as DC. Talk about continuity. Weaver was there for a little bit. He did a phenomenal job with the Dolphins as their DC. Love bringing him back. Even if Weaver's not going to be calling the plays, these two guys are clearly on the same page, same wavelength. And then Declan Doyle as the OC. Hey, as long as we keep his dad out of the building, right? If you know, you know. Just keep Pops out of the building. A lot of people have great things to say about Declan Doyle. He's worked under Sean Payton a lot, you know. Where else was he at? Well, he was with Ben Johnson last year. He's worked under a lot of great offensive minds. Just you ask around the league. I say this like I have sources, but just like based off stuff I've read, people have so many good things to say about Declan Doyle. And I like how it's like a big swing at offensive coordinator when you've already got Lamar and Henry that kind of set the floor pretty high. This is an A+ hire for me. I mean, you look at like how well the Chargers defense played, you know. Look, I was a little skeptical of the Chargers defense going into this year just because I was like, Minter seems great, but I just don't love a lot of the talent here. And they were like top 5 in all these metrics in 2024. But defense just fluctuates so much. I don't know if they'll repeat it again. And then they did, dude. Like, here's the thing. Like, they were just as good this past year. And it's a lot of the same dudes that were there with Staley when they were, quite frankly, one of the worst defenses in the league. It was that, and then like a bunch of day 2, day 3 draft picks. A lot of young guys, like he's getting Tarheeb Still to be the best version of himself. Cam Hart to be the best version of himself, you know? He's getting Deion Henley to be the best version of himself. He got all those players to realize their full potential. He used them in the best possible role. And that Chargers defense, maybe more than any other unit in the NFL, you could tell they were good because they were well coached and because their scheme was crazy. I love this hire so much. Maybe he's a slight wannabe Mike McDonald. Dude, if he's like 80% of Mike Mack, it's a home run, right? This is such a good hire. I love everything about this hire. I'm with you, Jack. Best hire of the cycle. Oh, yeah. I'm with you, man. I'm with you. Arch is definitely not worth tanking for. Hey, we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. He showed a little bit at the end of the year. We'll see. Cows goes back to Flores being told to tank. Yeah. Dude, that's crazy. There's like, oh, yeah, by the way, tank. And he's like, no. Dude, what a Chad. What a beast. Shout out Brian Flores. Speaking of Harbaugh, we've got Jimmy. Oh, yeah, alphabetical order by first name. I was like, huh? Jim Harbaugh, we'll put him in safe, too. I mean, again, they've made the playoffs back-to-back years with him. Clearly, they're in it for the long haul. Let's just see a little bit more. You know, let's see some new ideas. Well, you know what? No, I'll give him credit. He hired Mike McDaniel. There you go. There's the new idea. There's the big swing. Yeah, Jim Harbaugh's safe. Jim Harbaugh's safe. Next one, Joe Brady. Call me crazy. Not often I'm going to do this for a first-year head coach. I'm going to put him in lukewarm, just in the sense of I can see a world, not necessarily saying I think it's going to happen, seems pretty unlikely, but I could see a world where he's fired. This whole offseason has just been very, very weird for the Buffalo Bills, and it's kind of got me questioning, like, the people in charge of that building right now. The more and more that I think about it, man, I don't necessarily love firing Sean McDermott. Dude, the roster is really not that great. It's really not. And the lion's share of the credit should definitely go to Josh Allen for them like being as successful as they are. McDermott had that defense playing pretty darn well. He built a pretty good staff, right? He's the guy that hired Brady in the first place. You know what I'm saying? He still has authority over the defense. He doesn't necessarily call plays, but like he was pulling the strings and they were punching above their weight. I don't know, man. I don't necessarily love firing McDermott, to be completely honest with you. But the weirdest thing was Brandon Beane in the front office being like, dude, the coaching staff is just so stupid. Like, they're such idiots for picking Keon Coleman. Oh, yeah, by the way, screw Keon Coleman. He sucks. He's an idiot. Oh, yeah, we're going to promote the guy from the same coaching staff to be our head coach. I don't know, man. Like, what are we doing here? I don't like it. So, look, the Bills would probably have to miss the playoffs. That seems pretty unlikely. But I do think, like, if they miss the playoffs, I think ownership would be like, yeah, we just got to completely pull the plug and, like, do a full reset while Josh Allen is still here and, like, in his prime, right? It's very rare that a team as good as the Bills makes a change at head coach. It's just very interesting that they promoted from within. I think for that reason, he's lukewarm because this is a big swing and he's not on a very long leash. I don't think they're going to miss the playoffs, but if they do, it is Buffalo over. I just don't like where the heads are at of the people in charge of this Bills organization right now. Kaust would go one step further. He thinks it's warm. Okay. You know what? There you go. I like it. I like it. Caden's got Atlanta sewing project time. Let's go, baby. We'll see what you cook up. I'm excited. Let's go. Let's go. All right. Next one. We're cruising a little bit now. John Harbaugh. I'll put him in safe. Another instance where, like, the Giants are pretty self-aware. This is going to take some time. This is a process. I will say, honestly, I'm not. And this is so funny because he was like a main character of one of my most recent videos, right? Mr. Diary of a Wimpy Kid. And he was the poster child of, hey, not every coach needs to call plays. Look at how beast John Harbaugh is. And then this year happens. A lot of this probably has to do with him just not getting Todd Monken, because I honestly think Monken would have made so much sense for the Giants with Jackson Dart there and everything. I don't love the staff that he's built there, to be completely honest with you. I think it's another instance of, like, man, just not a lot of new ideas. It's just, oh, let me just hire the guys that I know, you know. Greg Roman is there once again. Oh my gosh, who did he hire as his offensive coordinator? I got to look this up real quick. I remember being, like, surprised by it. Who's Matt Nagy? That's right. It's like, sure, man. I don't know. I do like the Denard Wilson hire at defensive coordinator. But even though I'm not necessarily, like, huge on the Harbaugh hiring, and I do wonder if, like, this is going to be like 3 years and then Harbaugh retires or something, he's not going to be one and done. The Giants could win like 4 games next year, and, like, they recognize it's going to take some time. Unfortunately, I was wrong about this team, and they are not a playoff roster, you know, but it is what it is. What can you do? But appreciate you tuning in, Henry. Let's go, dude. Good to have you back, man. We're getting a little coaching talk in right now, doing a hot seat tier list, and a nice organic way for me to maybe talk about some of the new hires too. And look, there's your man coming up here real soon, Stefanski. I'm curious, Henry. I don't think I've asked you yet. What's your Kevin Stefanski take? Where are you at with the Falcons hiring Stefanski? I feel like I've talked to a few different Falcons fans, and opinions have kind of been across the board. And a few that liked it, a few that are like, eh. But what are you feeling about Stefanski? I do think that, you know, I get what you're saying. Maybe the Giants aren't necessarily a bad team. I still like the defense. And I do think maybe you get a serious corner in there, just a little bit more reinforcements in the secondary, and we're cooking. The offensive line played a little bit better than I thought it would. I hope Neighbors can just stay healthy, because he's so good when he's out there, man. I'm still not quite there with Jackson Dart, to be completely honest. I'm still just not quite there. He was honestly a lot better than I thought he would be. He's another guy that's like, man, can he stay healthy just with the way he plays? Can he be a little bit more of an ethical hooper at QB? We'll see. Scattaboo, can he survive? I mean, he's fun, but, like, is he get over under 39.5 games for Cam Scattaboo in his career? You know, we'll see. But we're in a very boring part right now. We've got a lot of safes coming up. Jack, I saw your message about KOC. Oh, we'll get to KOC. We'll get to KOC. I like him, I promise. I have nothing against KOC. We'll get to him. Last sort of boring one before things. I mean, there's a lot of safes coming up, I feel like. Kellen Moore should be safe. I'm kind of high on the Saints a little bit going into next year. Just a little bit. Maybe not necessarily going to pick them to make the playoffs. Kellen Moore surprised me a little bit. He was a little bit better than I thought he would be. Shuck was a little bit better than I thought he would be. Olave was good. And you know what? I got to say it. Dr. Pigskin favorite. I love the hire of Brandon Staley. I thought Staley honestly did a pretty good job as DC last year. I thought that was kind of a big swing. Kellen Moore was kind of sticking his neck out there a little bit, hiring Staley when, like, well, Here's what I'll say. His stock amongst like fans was very low, but I do think it's very telling that like a lot of coaches have always wanted him on their staff, right? Even after he got, humiliated as the Chargers head coach. Very next year, Kyle Shanahan is like, I need to get this guy on my staff. Matt LaFleur was making calls to get him on his staff. KOC was making calls to get him on his staff. Kellen Moore is like, I got to promote this guy. Bring him in as my DC. It's telling, So I think that was nice. Saints have good vibes right now. I think Kellen Moore is a fairly long leash. They could win like 6 games next year. He's probably safe, I should just do all the obvious safes right now. I don't hate that, honestly. Get a little bit more drama and spice going. I like that. Maybe we'll do that. And then from there, we'll leave the other coaches to like really sort things out. I kind of like that. Do the obvious safes now. First, we'll get Henry's Stefanski take. He's high on him, but a little nervous we're giving Tommy Rees play calling duties. Bill Callahan as O-line coach is maybe the move of the offseason. Love it. Absolutely love it. And, Dwayne Ledford, old Falcons offensive line coach, big act to follow. He's another guy like, man, you just look at the track record of some of the young guys they developed up front. You talk to people around that building, listen to what people have to say around the league. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Jesse Minter also brought Dwayne Ledford in on his staff for the Ravens. Like, that's a huge get. But if there's one guy you're going to bring in to replace Ledford, it's Mr. Offensive Line himself, Bill Callahan. Yeah. We'll see about Tommy Rees. Stefanski is just adamant that he's good. We'll see. And if Rees somehow were to like flame out or get plucked, you could have Stefanski step in. I do love keeping on Ulbrich as defensive coordinator. That was a must. We'll do the obvious safe. We'll do the safes now. Candace, when will these owners learn? First change, then Super Bowl. My friend, we are going to transition out of the building. You're fired. All done coaching. That's awesome. We put food in our mouth. Oh my gosh. All right. We're going to do the obvious safes. Oh my gosh, he's skipping Kevin O'Connell as an obvious safe. That's crazy. Stefanski will put in safe first year. He's going to get a little bit of time. Maybe you could talk me into lukewarm. We'll put him in safe. Same with Kubiak. Liam Cohen is safe. Kyle Shanahan is safe. Wow, he's escaping Matt LaFleur. I think Mike LaFleur is safe. Maybe lukewarm. I'll leave him for now. I'll come back to Mike LaFleur. Mike McDonald is safe. Mike Vrabel is safe. Saleh will come back to. McVay is safe. Peyton is safe. And there we go. All right. We got all the obvious safes out of the way. This is where things get a little bit more fun. I'll throw LaFleur in there. He'd get a second year. Just because, he's Matt's brother and he's like good buddies with the right tree. But also, it's fair to say, little Rams nugget, right? Because I'm always tapped in with the Rams. Fun little cool thing that Sean McVay has done the past few years. If final game of the regular season doesn't have any playoff implications or anything like that, Sean McVay will actually step back and let his offensive coordinator call plays. He's done that the past few years with Mike LaFleur. And the Rams offense looked kind of good. Think about that game against the Seahawks back in 2024, final game of the regular season. Dude, Jimmy G was dealing out there. Jimmy G threw for like 350 yards against Mike McDonald's Seahawks. And he's like, you know what? Mike LaFleur was calling plays. There's some talent. On that Cardinals offense. We'll put Mike in safe. Saleh. I'll put him in lukewarm just because, like, if the Titans are, like, super bad again, you could talk me into him getting fired. We'll put Saleh in lukewarm. I'll also put Todd Monken in lukewarm. You know what? We'll have a few first-year guys in lukewarm. Just because I could see the Browns, like, being a disaster. If Brian Callahan wasn't one and done, Saleh won't be either. Maybe that's fair. I think the argument that you could make the other way around, though, Brian Callahan's big excuse is, well, we didn't have a quarterback. I didn't get to pick my quarterback yet. You got to let me pick my quarterback. Fair or not, he could totally say that. Saleh probably couldn't say that, though, right? Saleh couldn't say, well, I need to draft my quarterback still, right? They feel good about Cam Ward. If they won like 2 games, Saleh would probably get fired, right? I don't know. That's my Saleh take. And I think like Saleh is definitely a better coach than Callahan was. But again, it's just the politics of it all. You have to factor that stuff in. I don't know. Henry says Shuck's ceiling is still low enough that I don't buy into him as a true long-term franchise QB for the Saints. No, I mean, I don't think he's going to be like Drew Brees or anything, right? There is something to be said, though, about like, you know what? He could be like good, and maybe that's okay. Like maybe he could be like the 17th best quarterback in the NFL, and maybe that's like nothing too special, but they're cooking on offense a little bit. I am with you, Jack. Like, here's what I'll say. You could win the Super Bowl with the 17th best quarterback in the NFL. Now, your team would have to be pretty sick, right? And the Saints certainly aren't there yet. But, like, yeah, you could win a Super Bowl with Tyler Shuck. The Saints would just need to have, like, a run of, like, 3 insane drafts and, like, hit on every free agent signing, Pretty unlikely, but I'm not going to say, like, wow, Shuck is going to, like, take the leap in year 2 and throw for 4,800 yards. Like, that's probably not happening. What we saw from Shuck this year is probably about what we're going to get, but also I kind of liked what I saw from him. So if I'm the Saints, I'm okay with that. Jack would think about putting Monken in Warm. I think the only thing keeping him out of it is it's year 1, which might be lame. But he is an older coach. And it's so funny because I was honestly kind of gassing up the Browns a little bit just like a few months ago. I loved their draft class so much. Dude, I'm not kidding. Their entire offensive line are all free agents. They still need like another wide receiver to really the only thing you feel good about on offense right now is their tight ends and their running backs. The line is a mess. The receiver room is not good. And no disrespect, I know he's got his fans, and honestly, I kind of like the guy. He's fun. I enjoy watching him, and he makes the Browns more fun. If we're going to be honest, Shedeur Sanders was like the worst starting quarterback in the NFL last year. Their quarterback room is a disaster. It's Shedeur, Dylan Gabriel, and Deshaun Watson. They don't have a path to pick one in the draft. Like, it's going to probably be like Kirk or something. Like, their offense is probably not going to be good. The defense is still pretty nice. You know what? Screw it. I'll put him in Warm. You talked me into it. Band-Aid on a busted pipe. So true. I wish they would have gone with Nate Scheelhaus, man. And that's another case of like an organization just handling things weird and like the whole Jim Schwartz saga, and then like they end up losing Jim Schwartz because of it. I don't necessarily like that. I'll put him in Warm. Yeah. Is Spencer Rattler still a top 20 QB? I don't know if I ever put him in top 20. I don't know if I ever went that far. I do like him a good amount, though. Here's what I'll say. I walk back my take of Rattler being better than Shuck. I do think Rattler has a slightly higher ceiling than Shuck, though. And genuinely, not to make every single thing about the Vikings, like I tend to do, if the Vikings were to actually like take a swing on a quarterback, straight up, I would rather bring in Spencer Rattler than, let's run it back with Kirk. Nah, I do not want Kirk. I'm sorry. Dice rolling Spencer Rattler, though. I'd like to see some team take a swing on him. I think there's a little something there, but Henry thinks a factor driving a lot of these coaches' hot seats is who's available next coaching style to potentially upgrade at head coach. Very good point. And I do think there's something to say about next year's cycle might be a little bit juicier. This year's cycle was fine. It was no last year, right? Last year you had Liam Cohen, you had Ben Johnson as like the 2 crown jewels. Mike Vrabel was just like randomly available too, This year there wasn't as many like sexy hires, like Jesse Minter was the belle of the ball, and then like John Harbaugh was the guy that was like randomly available that got snatched up real quickly. Wasn't a crazy cycle this year. Next year, I think you're going to be looking at Grant Udinski. That's going to be a big hot name to watch out for. I'm a little surprised he didn't get a job this year. Nate Shieldhouse, who I was just talking about, Rams just promoted him to OC. People speak the world of this guy. He's been the passing game coordinator. He's had a big hand in sort of making over the Rams passing game and bridging the gap from Goff to Stafford and all the new cool things that they do with him. He's a name to watch. I hate to say it, but it's probably true. Brian Flores going to be out there again, right? I mean, inevitably, like when the Vikings defense balls out again because of him, like he'll at least be in the conversation. Eventually, someone's probably going to pull the trigger on him, right? Chris Shula's probably going to be out there. I'm a little surprised he didn't get a job this year. He's very, very good. Like right off the bat, we're looking at like 4 guys that I would be like, man, I would feel great about like any team that hired him, you know? So I don't know. Next year's cycle, I could see like some teams moving on because they're like, yo, we got to get Nate Shieldhouse. We got to get Chris Shula, you know? That's a good point, though. Rattler to the Vikes is so real. Dude, I'm genuinely here for it. I think he's kind of good. I really do. I like Rattler a good amount. Marvin Harrison Jr. is the biggest bust known to mankind. He's getting there. Maybe. You know what? Should we have the Vikings conversation? Let's do it. I'm going to put KOC in warm. And Jack, I know you're saying that he's clearly safe. I don't know, man. And I've got my TikTok. Some of y'all might have watched it. Let's be real with ourselves here. Look. I'm not even going to say that Kevin O'Connell is a bad coach. I don't think he's a bad coach whatsoever. I do think it's also fair to say you have to consider where the Vikings are as an organization right now. This is one of the most win-now teams in the NFL. They missed the playoffs. They don't have a clear answer at quarterback. They're over the cap. They've got a lot of stuff to figure out this offseason to not only get back to where they were last year, but be better, you know? They have to be better than they were last year. This is an offensive-minded head coach who calls plays, who has seen a lot invested into the offense, whether it be high draft picks, whether it be massive extensions or big moves in free agency. All these new starting offensive linemen, paying Justin Jefferson, paying Christian Darrisaw, drafting a receiver in the first round, trading for TJ Hawkinson, all this stuff, right? Rightfully so. Like, obviously they're going to pay Justin Jefferson, but you know what I'm saying, right? It's not like he can cry poor on offense and be like, well, like, the offense isn't good, you know? Why did the Vikings miss the playoffs last year, right? We could sit here and say it's so impressive that they still got to 9-8. That's such a huge feather in the cap of KOC. Why? Here's what I'll say. Why were they 9-8 and not like 12-5? Why did they not win the division when the NFC North was honestly kind of open last year? It was because of their offense. They had a bottom, like by any way you slice it, they had a bottom 5 offense in the NFL last year. Yes, I'd be very obtuse to say that like that's all on him. Obviously, the quarterback play was not good. But also, the running game still wasn't very good. I've still got all my complaints about how like our entire passing game is just how many 15-yard in routes can we throw to Justin Jefferson? I swear our entire passing game is 15-yard digs to Justin Jefferson, slot fades to Jalen Nailor, and like 8-yard curl routes that take forever to develop, dude. And I just like, what, you know? He's hailed as like this genius quarterback whisperer that everyone wants to play with. And it's just so awesome how he's just turned big, bad, stupid Sam Darnold into such a good quarterback. And holy smokes, he's a god. It's just kind of crazy how Sam leaves and has a better season, you know? The quarterback whisperer who can only have good seasons with Kirk Cousins and Sam Darnold. The offensive genius who's never had a top 10 offense, you know? I think it's fair to say his seat is warm. If the Vikings miss the playoffs again, in the situation that they are right now, he might get fired. I think that's fair to say. And I honestly think right now, as it stands, I don't know that they're making the playoffs. I honestly don't feel great about where the Vikings are at right now. And low-key, I think Kwesi got scapegoated just a little bit. I get why they fired him. I'm not saying Kwesi is like secretly an amazing GM. I think he got scapegoated just a little bit, and I'm not pleased with how this whole thing has been handled. It's just very interesting how I'm starting to lose my voice now because I'm really getting into it. This is literally like all I've been thinking about for weeks now. The big criticism of Kwesi was always he's not a real GM because he's not a scout like that. He's just a number cruncher and a process nerd, and like his drafts are bad, but also he's not drafting, right? Here's what I'll say. It's just very interesting how Kwesi gets fired because his drafts are bad, but the guys who are actually drafting, aka Ryan Grigson and the scouting department, literally none of those guys got fired. I'm a little bitter, but also like, nah, it kind of is though. It kind of is KOC's fault. It's very naive to say that KOC had nothing to do with that, right? KOC was gassing up JJ the whole way. I know KOC was thinking, yeah, man, I got us to the playoffs with Darnold. Could put Eric Tiongson out there and we'd make the playoffs because my offense is amazing, you know? There's definitely some bitterness to that. I'm not denying that. But also, like, Kwesi got fired because he couldn't draft, but also Kwesi wasn't drafting. Why is Ryan Grigson still here, right? Why are these scouts still here then? One last thing. Kwesi always talked about trusting the process, not being a victim of hindsight, and doing the right decision of what he thought was right in the moment. Kwesi was brought in because the Vikings were in a terrible cap situation. They were old and aging. They had to make the tough decision to move on from Kirk, and his job was essentially to do a competitive rebuild and to build a window around a mystery quarterback on a rookie contract. We didn't know who that was going to be when he took over. We just knew we were going to move on from Kirk, get younger, and open up a window around like 2024, 2025. And you know what he did? He did that. He did his job. His drafts were not good, but also he did his job. He opened up a window for us. He handled the cap well. He was aggressive when he needed to be. He made good free agent signings. He knew when to be. I don't know. I'm coping a little bit. I am coping a little bit. No, I absolutely, no, see, I fell for it, right? That's probably why I'm like so emotional about this. I fell for it. I fully believed with my whole heart going into last season, dude, KOC in this offense is just too good to fail. It's just like we could have anyone out there and there's no way we could possibly be bad. Yes. Well, we haven't got, I don't know. Does he have a hotter seat than Mike LaFleur? I would say so, right? There's no expectations for Mike LaFleur. If the Vikings win like 7 games next year, he's probably gone, no? Wouldn't you say that? I think that's fair. Yes, my LVP was JJ. I mean, some of that's for the memes, right? I don't know, man. Have a good offense this year. Don't just be like, wow, like we're the 17th best offense, but like this stupid quarterback keeps like, I don't know, man. It's just very interesting. Last thing, and then I'm going to move on because I've spent way too much time on KOC. The defining quote of KOC that everyone likes to say is that organizations fail quarterbacks before quarterbacks fail organizations. There's been a massive smear campaign against J.J. McCarthy, and he has 10 starts under his belt. But he's just unplayable. He's so bad. He's so dumb. We had to change the playbook for him. All right, why didn't you change the playbook for Max Brosmer? All right, that's enough KOC talk. I stand by my take. I think his seat is warm. It would not shock me if he was not the coach next year. Maybe another team would snap him up real quick. I get that. I totally get that. But also, it just might be time to move on at some point. I am speaking emotionally. I'm wearing my heart on my sleeve. KOC doesn't throw the ball. That's true. All right, prove it here then. Prove it. All right. If the quarterback really ruined things, bring in Mac Jones and have a decent offense then. Bring in Mac Jones and get as much out of him as Kyle Shanahan did then, if you're really like that. All right, that's my challenge. If he's really like that, if he's really a god-tier quarterback whisperer, Kyle Shanahan did it this year with a worse supporting cast, I would argue, right? They didn't have Justin Jefferson. Kittle was injured. Half their team was dead, like, all right, bring in Mac Jones and have a good offense because Kyle did that. So you do it. You do it. Matt LaFleur time. I'm putting him in warm too. Similar story. I think they're both brilliant offensive minds. The big thing with LaFleur, and his seat was kind of warm at the end of this past season, right? The Packers have just lost some unserious games, dude. Just in stupid fashion. Look, even after Micah Parsons went down this past season, right? And that obviously sucked, and that probably put a cap on their ceiling. There was still no excuse for this team to not win the NFC North. For them to lose that Bears game in December the way that they did, for them to collapse across the finish line and lose the division the way they did, and then for them to just absolutely choke in the playoffs in the first round the way that they did. For them to always struggle and come out flat in these big games, right? For them to always kind of underachieve, and then for them to always play the card of, oh, well, we're young and growing, right? It's year 4 of them being young and growing now. I don't know. I think his seat is a little warm. I think if the Packers were to miss the playoffs or even get first rounded, go one and done, he might not quite get fired, but then he'd be in red hot the next year, you know? I think his leash is getting a little bit shorter. As a team, it just feels like they're starting to underachieve a little bit. Caden is saying, bye-bye, he can go. Ooh, spicy. But you know what? There are a lot of Packers fans that are right there with you. Yeah. Expecting KOC to be Kyle Shanahan is just delusion. I mean, yes and no, right? I get what you're saying, and like KOC will probably never be quite as good of a play caller as Kyle Shanahan is, but that's the expectation, right? The expectation and sort of the narrative around KOC, the belief is that he is that good. The whole idea of why he won Coach of the Year is because he accomplished this unthinkable feat of bringing Sam Darnold to the playoffs, when it turns out Sam Darnold was just actually good, you know? Like, I don't know. I've got myself so worked up over this. I don't know that he is Liam Cohen, dude. I don't like, at least as far as like a play caller goes. Who would I rather have call plays for my team, KOC or Liam Cohen? I would take Liam. I would take Liam Cohen. Henry's saying LaFleur would instantly be the most coveted coach on the market if they fire him. Yeah, probably, right? Probably. I think it's so funny I'm saying this as a Vikings fan, but like someone who's like believed in the Packers for a while, it's just frustrating seeing them lose some of these games that they have no business losing, you know? I don't know. It's tough, right? Like he's a good coach, right? That's what's so tough. Like he's a good coach. Same with KOC. I'm not saying KOC is a bad coach. It's kind of, I think I've given this take before, but like, as far as like an actual head coach removing like play calling or anything like that, I think KOC is excellent. I think he's a much better like CEO type of guy than he is play caller. I would say maybe the inverse is true for LaFleur, where I think he's a brilliant play caller. I think he's an unbelievable schemer. But it's like, what's the vibe in that locker room these days? What's the temperature like? Would they need to make a move just to like get a cultural reset maybe? That's my take. When the Vikings are back in the playoffs, Doc will not want KOC gone. True. Yeah, no, if we make the playoffs, I would not want him gone. That is very true. We'll see if that happens. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know. The Vikings are not allowed to be good in consecutive years. That is very true. They're also not allowed to be bad in consecutive years either, right? Very true. Offenses are gimmick heavy to get Jefferson open so they can win games, but it's not a sustainable way to build an offense that can go deep in the playoffs. I keep saying I'm done with KOC, and then I keep coming back. They're soft. All right, Mike McCarthy. We got to finish this up, dude. My voice is starting to go. Mike McCarthy, lukewarm or warm? I might say lukewarm just based off the fact that he's... No, you know what? If Monken can be warm, and if KOC and LaFleur can be warm, we'll put Mike McCarthy in warm too. I do not get this hire whatsoever. I just do not get it, to be completely honest with you. This was the perfect chance for the Steelers to finally pivot, take that big swing, and go complete opposite direction from Tomlin. They felt like they were in purgatory for so long. They finally moved on from Tomlin. I mean, he probably is safe just like from like the ownership standpoint of like they won't be one and done with him. That's probably true. But I just dislike this hire. So I'm putting it in warm. It's not even like McCarthy is awful. I wouldn't say he's like one of the 5 worst coaches in the league, but it's just so uninspiring. Hey, maybe there's some genius baby out there that could recite Shakespeare. You never know. He probably does have a long leash, though. Also, he's from Pittsburgh. Maybe we can meet in the middle and I'll put him in lukewarm. That's probably a better spot for him, lukewarm, because there is maybe a world where he gets fired. Like with these guys, like I said, unless they like commit a crime, I don't see a world where these guys get fired, right? With Mike McCarthy, if the Steelers won like 5 games and the vibes just weren't good and like he and Aaron Rodgers are ripping each other's head off and then Rodgers retires, they might actually fire him. But other than that, probably not. I'll sneak McCarthy into lukewarm. Sirianni we're putting in warm, and this is another guy I've gone to bat for him for a minute, but it's kind of now or never time, dude. Talk about a team that underachieved this past year. Talk about a dude who whiffed on his OC hire, right? Elevated his buddy Kevin Patullo. That didn't work out very well. There's always weird stuff going on in that locker room, right? Seems like A.J. Brown is reading a book or tweeting something cryptic every other day. Sirianni's seat is warm, and I might put him in red hot, honestly, just because, like, if the Eagles don't win a playoff game this next year, he's probably gone. They could even make the playoffs, but if they don't win a game, he's probably gone. I will put him in red hot. He's definitely on one of the hottest seats in the NFL. We'll put Sirianni in red hot. Seems like Doc is starting to value play calling more in his coaches. A tiny bit, I will admit, a tiny bit. This past year was not good for the narrative. This past year was not good for the narrative whatsoever. But play calling does not have to be offense. Let's give some defensive guys a little bit more love too. But the tide is starting to turn just slightly. But you know what? He's safe. He's all right with me, you know. Vrabel doesn't call plays. He's all right with me, you know. Shane Steichen, I want to put him in lukewarm just because I feel like he's earned himself a long leash and like he can point to Daniel Jones getting hurt as to why they missed the playoffs. About a year ago, I would have had him like right here, but he survived and thrived, if anything. He had a good year as a coach. Either warm or lukewarm. I'm kind of torn on this one. Steichen is red hot, you think? I will say the Colts are in kind of a tough spot with like Daniel Jones being a free agent and being injured, and the bridge definitely seems to be burned with Anthony Richardson. That's fair to say. I'll put him in warm. We'll meet in the middle, and I'm going to put him in warm. There's a plausible chance that he's fired. He's probably a cut above these guys, but I can't quite put him in the tier with like Glenn, Quinn, and Sirianni. But the last two guys I will. I will definitely put Bowles and Zach Taylor in red hot. Bowles is another guy who honestly I honestly feel pretty confident that he's going to get fired. He's just lost his fastball as a defensive coordinator, right? And the Bucs start to feel like this is going to be a pretty clear, obvious pivot point for them. They had a great run with like Bruce Arians and then bridging to Todd Bowles, and it was very impressive how they kept things going for a while, right? How they kept bringing these guys back and the culture stayed the same. There's nothing wrong with them promoting Bowles the way that they did. I think all things considered, they have to be happy with how that played out. It was a good decision. This kind of feels like the end of the line, though. It feels like this is the end of this era of Bucs football. Really, that started when they brought in Bruce Arians, peaked with Brady, and then had a nice little mini run at the end there with Bowles. A lot of great times. You get a Super Bowl out of it. Them missing the playoffs was a disaster last year. The defense still has a lot of problems. They keep losing their coordinators, and you wonder how much juice is left. How much is left in the tank? And then Zach Taylor, I mean, dog, come on, look. He's got 9 lives, and the players seem to like him. But also, I always say this, he's an offensive-minded head coach, a play caller, and yet the whole narrative about the offense is it's really uncreative. But, man, their players are sick, you know. They don't do anything interesting, but look at Joe Burrow sling it, you know. That's their offense. Like, they could do so much better. I'm sorry. They really could. And I don't know the guy, so maybe I shouldn't be speaking about him like this, but dog, I'm sorry. He's Wonder Bread in a polo shirt. Come on now. Like, Yeah, his seat is red hot, dude. The Bengals keep missing the playoffs. They're sinking all this money into their star players. There's this expectation that they're supposed to be better. If they miss the playoffs again, dude, he's done. Maybe Marvin Lewis will unleash his spirit into him, and Marvin Lewis kept surviving for so long, but I think they'll have a shorter leash with Zach Taylor. We'll put him in red hot. But there you go, man. That is the tier list. If y'all want to play along or like do it yourself, I could drop the link in Discord if y'all are interested. Or you could just Google NFL head coach tier list or something like that. It's one of the first ones that comes up. I customized mine a little bit. I don't like the 5 tiers. I wanted just 4, but there you have it. We got a few guys in red hot, warm, lukewarm. You got the obvious safes. We got to hit some of the new coaching hires. It's good to just talk ball again. I'm sorry, Eagle Eyes. This is very tough timing. Yes, the stream is almost over. We're about to wrap things up here, but I do appreciate you popping in for a little bit. It's good to see the Eagle pop back in and chat for a little bit. But as I was saying at the top of the show, dude, I'm so pumped for the offseason. I love these offseason streams so much. Dude, Caden and I can't lie, we've been cooking a little bit. I've got a little spreadsheet going right now. For those that might have missed in Discord or whatever, the plan for this offseason, streams are going to be Monday night instead of Wednesday night. Just works a little bit better with my work schedule. I get off a little bit earlier on Monday. It gives me a little bit more time. But, dude, we've got so much stuff, fun stuff planned. Bringing back some of the hits from last year, as well as some new stuff as well. So keep your eyes peeled for that. We're going to be back going live again next Monday, same time, 8 p.m., free agency preview. It's hard to believe free agency is already almost here. We're going to be taking a look at the free agent class, breaking down some of the players that I like, maybe some fits, making some predictions for like where certain players might go. I did a similar stream last year and I had a ball doing it. We're bringing it back again this year. We're going to be pulling up the Greg Rosenthal free agent 101 and just going through, yapping about free agency. And then the week after that, free agency starts. And it's free agent frenzy, and we're just talking free agency. So that'll be your next 2 weeks. A little teaser right there. But I appreciate all you guys tuning in. King Barrel Makers popping in at the end too. Let's go. Appreciate you tuning in as always. My voice is almost gone. I'm going to drink some more hot water and maybe add some flavoring to it somehow. We'll see. But thank you guys so much for watching. I'm just so jazzed up to be back, man. Truly, genuinely. It's nice to like take a few weeks off and like let the dust settle, but we're hitting the ground running. Streams every week. New video coming out very, very, very soon. It's in the process of being recorded and edited. Had a little teaser for that. And then we're already working on the next video after that, baby. So it's going to be a good year, man. It's going to be a very good year. 2026 is going to rock. But that's all I've got. Thank you, guys. And until next time, see you all next week. The doctor is out. KOC seat is hot.